So good morning, everyone. My name is Marianne Bobrow. I am a member of MPI Global's Anti-Human Trafficking Committee, and I am pleased to be here this morning with two people, one of whom I have known for a very long time. So David, if you could introduce yourself, and then Ben, if you could introduce yourself, we can get started.
Thank you, Marianne, and thank you for the invitation. Great to be with you today and to talk about this important topic. My name is David Peckinpah. I'm president and CEO of Merit's Holdings, as well as president of Merit's Global Events. And I've been with the company about 11 years in various roles, and excited that we have a chance to talk about this topic. Ben?
My name is Ben Goedegebuur. I'm Enterprise Vice President, Global and Industry Presence. I've been with Merit's now 8 years, but I, like you, Marianne, I've known David for a very long time. And yeah, really pleased to be in the company. And thank you for inviting us to talk about this important topic.
Yeah, we're not old, we're mature, right? Yeah.
We are mature.
Yeah.
We are significant people in the industry.
There you go. Well said.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, David, I remember being at an event some years ago. I believe you were still with San Diego, and you were on stage with one of the execs of one of the industry associations, and you were talking about human trafficking. And that started me down my personal journey for advocating for anti-human trafficking efforts. I became a member of the code. I am now on MPI's Anti-Human Trafficking Committee and have been since it was created 3 years ago. And every year MPI has invited people from that original group to come back because of the work that the committee had collectively done. So David, you've been involved in anti-human trafficking efforts for a very long time. And I just want to, well, first I want to say congratulations on the escalation to president of Merit's Holding.
Thank you.
And can you tell us how you got started and what motivated you to not only start, but to continue within Merit's once you had moved from San Diego?
Yeah, and thank you, Marianne. And yeah, it's a topic I've been aware of for quite some time. I would say awareness and then really deeper familiarity is the tipping point. And for me, that actually happened after I started in my role in St. Louis with Merit's Global Events. And I chose the background today because it's very appropriate with the arch in the background. And very quickly, I had received an invitation from Sabre, which is one of the GDSs in the travel industry. And they had invited me to a ceremony in Dallas when they were going to be welcoming Delta Airlines as a signer of the code. I'd never heard of the code at that point. I had not heard of ECPAT, ECPAT-USA at that point. And I thought, that's interesting. They're inviting me to this. What's the code? And I need to find out really more about human trafficking. And the reason why the arch is so important is I went online and I started researching. And one of the very first images that came up was a picture of a young girl in a hotel room, and you can see the arch in the background.
Wow.
So it did a number of things for me. One is that it suddenly became a real backyard issue. I think at that point, with my lack of knowledge, I thought it was really more of a global issue. It was overseas. It was around sex tourism and some of those things, and not really in our backyard and not really in our community. And then that started the research process and found out it was obviously and horribly everywhere. And the entanglements with our industry were very deep, right? Transportation hubs, convention centers, hotels, motels, all very much a part of the chain of trafficking that occurs. And so as I thought about that, I said, you know, part of our moral obligation and who we are as a company is to get involved and get involved more deeply. So I first brought it to our HR, or what we call people and development team. As you can imagine, the initial reaction is kind of hands off. That's a topic that you typically don't talk about in a workplace. But after a lot of discussion and really understanding the importance of this, we decided we would share it at a town hall. And ECPAT provided a very powerful video. And then we had a Q&A afterwards, and there was not a dry eye in the place. It's very powerful. The scale of this crime is just hard to fathom. And we had an open dialogue about it. And at that point, we said, we want this to be employee driven, not leadership driven. And so if there's energy behind this, raise your hand, volunteer, and get involved in the steering committee. And within a week, we had over 120 people volunteer. And that was in 2011, and we've been involved ever since. And then more recently, Ben has taken over over the last year to really drive our efforts to make sure that we're still on point, that our task force and steering committee, after the impacts of COVID and the pandemic, is sort of reconstituted and re-energized. So that's our story, the connection with St. Louis and the Arch, and really the start of our commitment to sign the code through ECPAT, and then fulfill our obligation, which you're an example of that, which is to spread the word and to build awareness. And that's what we've been committed to really from day one.
And as far as the global committee for MPI is concerned, we not only want to spread awareness of it, but we also want people to capture the essence of the victim. And that I've heard victims talk, and what they would say is, people don't see me as a human being, they look straight through me. And that's why we've named this series Through Their Eyes.
Yeah, so it's very, very much and very closely tied to the homeless issue, right? You hear the same thing.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Actually, I have an upcoming one with at the head of Connecticut youth facility that is dealing with those issues as well. So, and she agrees that for the LGBTQ community, that it's really essential that we do something. So I think, Ben, probably you can answer this question for me. How has the fight against human trafficking changed over the years? And do people really see this differently than they did in the past?
I think at the moment there's a huge focus on it. I actually live in Europe, and I see, for instance, on CNN, on all the international channels, human trafficking has become a great issue. Now that we're dealing with the effects of the aftermath of COVID, but then also the war in the Ukraine, if you see the stories coming out of that, they are just heart-wrenching. And this is not just about, as David was saying, it's not just about the sex trafficking and things like that. It's actually human slavery or modern day slavery. There are all these horrible things that are going on, and our focus really needs to be on making sure that our people are aware of how that happens, and whatever we can do to create the awareness and keep the awareness up is very important. So that David just mentioned the fact that years ago when we started, our people were so revved up to be part of all of this. Now that we've reconstituted the committee, that is still very much the case. And really educating our people, educating the people who get in contact with communities out there is a very much a high focus for us there. But I think to your original question, I'm not sure that it has changed as much. I think it's still as prevalent in every sort of situation that you can imagine. I think we haven't heard as much in certain areas just because people haven't been traveling, right? So but this is really becoming big again. And again, all sorts of issues are connected to it. Homelessness are connected to it. The war is connected to it. You know, the fact that people are trying to find people to work in industries where they use, regretfully, slaves. And it's still very much the case. And all of that is affecting all of us.
So if we had one thing that we could focus on that would bring global focus on the issue within MPI, what would be your recommendation? It's kind of hard to go country by country and figure out what's happening. Is there any way that we could make it more prevalent in, let's say, Europe or any of the South American countries or Mexico or any of that, that would bring more awareness to those countries?
So I think you shouldn't underestimate the power of the media in this, because I think it's become a massive issue in Europe, as an example, because of the media. The media have picked up on human trafficking as an issue, as I say, out of the war. So making connections with media, making sure that we as an industry let our voice be heard, because I do think we need to focus on the hospitality industry. So making our voice heard through the mainstream channels is going to be an important, so that MPI does, and that's being done by organizations like ECPAT, is critically important. There needs to be focus. We need to identify the issues where we can make a difference, and we need to make sure that people are aware of the telltale signs, right? So there is training on that score. So I think that would be my advice.
Yeah, if I could add to that, I think the training that's available through ECPAT, it's online and it's powerful. I think see something, say something with the 1-800 hotline is really important. And then the other thing that we promote is an app called Trafficking.
Mhm.
And it allows anybody, and this is where people want to know that they're personally making a difference. And it's something that I do every time I'm in a hotel, in a room. I use Trafficking. You take 4 photos of the room and it downloads into an international database that law enforcement has access to. So in the incident that I pointed to with the young lady in a hotel room in St. Louis,
Mhm.
because of the algorithms and the database that now has millions of hotel rooms, they can actually identify the location, the property, and in many times the room, so that they can intercede and make a difference. And I think those are the things that people want to do. It's great to talk about it, but we want to make a difference. And so those action steps, I think, are really important. Training, see something, say something, the hotline, and then Trafficking are all good ways to go about making a difference.
Yeah, and I think the work that MPI's committee has done on MPI's website in its resources is quite helpful. And the committee actually provides free training to the chapters for virtual meetings to increase that awareness. And one of the things we have to do is to make sure that we include the chapters outside the US and Canada in that process to keep that going. So let me ask, do either of you have a recent success story that really inspired you?
The most recent one, and because of the pandemic, it goes pre-pandemic,
Sure.
is our HR leader was presenting down in Cancun, Mexico.
Mhm.
And we had sent her down to speak specifically on this topic with one of our hotel partners. And that same day, someone was leaving through the Cancun airport, saw something, said something, and a young woman was rescued from a trafficking situation. So there was an immediate result. I can't say that happens every time. That's more, unfortunately, rare than common. But it was an immediate story of the fact that we're out there talking about it. All of us have that responsibility to do that, and it was an instantaneous, almost benefit to one important individual. So, but I think there are countless stories. We've had stories coming to and from events of people seeing things on airplanes that don't make sense, and that's all part of the signs. We had one, we were coming out of Texas with one of our employees reported something, and sure enough, it was another one of those situations. So I think, unfortunately, we've had a 2-year hiatus of a lot of travel and business travel. So this is the time to re-energize and to get the word back out and to keep our eyes open.
Yeah, I tell the story in presentations that I do in Sacramento. 2 young girls, about 15 years old, went up to the gate agent and showed their airline tickets, and they had no ID. They didn't know anything about what they were doing. Ironically enough, the agent's last name was Miracle.
Huh.
And she privately summoned the sheriff. And it turns out that the girls were on the phone with the trafficker.
Oh my goodness.
And he was listening to everything. And they had first class tickets. one way. And when they were told they were one way, they said, oh no, we're going to do a model video of some sort. And as it turns out, yeah, had they gotten off in New York, they would probably never have been seen again. Because I know from the statistics that I have found, more than 60% of the people that are trafficked will never be recovered. And that's a really sad and compelling tale to tell, if you agree. So I don't want to keep you long. I know your time is valuable, but I do have one final question for you. What is a simple thing in the meeting industry everyone can do on a regular basis? I know you talked about traffic cam, as we begin to move outside of the pandemic. What else can be done?
One thing I will say is I think use every opportunity, which is what we do every time we have an event. Virtually every time I'm on stage with an outside audience, because our people obviously are very familiar, I always use it as a forum to build awareness. So don't miss that opportunity. It can be done at the chapter level. It can be done, going to, national or annual meetings. That is always an opportunity to do that. And also I would say every town that we've been into has an organization or organizations that are involved in the issue. Here in St. Louis, we're really fortunate to have one of the very few halfway houses called the Covering House. Their big gala was just about a week ago, and we're very involved with that locally. They currently have a home that can support 5 recovering women, typically young women that have been trafficked. They're moving to a new campus. We're helping raise funds for that. That will allow them to house up to 20 and hopefully eventually 25. And police locally here said they are probably up to 3 candidates a week that could be helped. There are countless organizations all around the country that do the same thing. So find those in your backyard, get involved and help them. They usually need help with fundraising. They need help with many issues and things that we can make a difference on in the hospitality industry.
That's great. And I think in the end, if there's anything I can do to help you at all, let me know. You know where to find me.
Yeah.
I'm usually hanging out in the halls of the convention centers at meetings.
This is one other idea I thought too is something that we did, and we were at a Hyatt event out in California, and they had an organization out in Southern California that recovering women from trafficking make jewelry, and that jewelry is for sale, and they they can send that and share that jewelry not only locally but anywhere.
Wow.
So they sent a bunch of that jewelry to the Covering House Gala here in St. Louis. And we were able to sell that and raise money for the Covering House, but through the sale of that jewelry. And those kind of things happen and can happen all over the place. So if you're doing a gift portal, you're doing a gift opportunity on site, why not include that as another opportunity? Jewelry is beautiful, it's not expensive, and it makes a difference.
That's wonderful. That's great. I thank both of you for your time today. I admire the work that's been done. And as I say, thank you very much for your time and efforts. And I know you will continue them. But again, I admire very much what you do. And I thank you for the time you've spent today.
Thanks, Marianne. And I want to thank Ben for leading the charge for Emeritus Global Events, is making a difference and bringing a global perspective to this issue, which is really important.
Great.
Well,
thank you both. I'm just so delighted that you could spare the time for us.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too, Marianne.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.